When I was in seminary back in 2017, one of the key requirements was a year of supervised ministry in a local congregation. Naturally, I had hoped to find a Unitarian Universalist community to intern with in Dallas or Fort Worth, but the stars did not quite align. So a colleague suggested I reach out to the Welcome Table Christian Church, a progressive Disciples of Christ congregation in Arlington, Texas. I can remember sending the minister a long 3-paragraph-long email explaining who I was, how I had respected the church's liberal message for a long time now, and how I would be honored if they would be willing to consider me as an intern in their church. A couple hours later, I received an email response from the minister that simply had one word: sure. That summer, I got to witness an interesting tradition that had started the summer before I arrived. Instead of sticking with the usual sermon series that they normally did, the minister invited members to text or email suggestions, passages, themes, big questions for upcoming sermons. No sooner had those words left his mouth than I pulled out my phone, yes, right there in the pew, and texted unicorns in the Bible. Now, the first time that I did this, it was mostly a joke. I have a well-known and perhaps slightly over-the-top affection for unicorns. My friends had already warned the minister of what he was getting into, and yet I could not resist. And then a few weeks later, the call for sermon suggestions went out again. This time, I sent my unicorn request sincerely. I wanted to know what my mentor would do with a topic so whimsical, yet so theologically potent. But alas, the unicorn sermon never came. And then the minister went out of town and entrusted me with the pulpit. It was at that point that I thought, if a unicorn sermon is going to happen, I guess I am going to be the one to make it happen. And so, here we are. Let us begin with the facts. The word unicorn appears 9 times in the King James Bible. Most scholars now agree that this is the result of a translation error. The Hebrew word re'em, the word that appears in each of those 9 instances, is considered to refer to a large, now extinct wild ox known as an aurochs. Some translations have rhinoceros. But when early translators turned to the Greek Septuagint for guidance whenever they had a Hebrew word that they did not recognize, as Hebrew scholarship was not as advanced as it was during the time of the King James Bible, they found the word monoperos, literally one horn. Hence, the unicorn was born, or at least born again, in the English imagination. Now, to modernize, this might seem silly. We tend to associate unicorns with glitter, cartoons, or novelty mugs. But to early readers and translators, unicorns weren't just childish fantasy. They were creatures of myth and legend, yes, but also of reverence. The unicorn shows up not just in the Bible, but in ancient Greek accounts from historians like Ctesias and Pliny the Elder. Chinese mythology has the Qilin, a unicorn-like being with the body of a horse, scales of a dragon, and a celestial temperament. The Qilin was a harbinger of peace and justice, and in medieval Europe, the unicorn came to symbolize Christ, pure, elusive, self-sacrificing, and divine. It is that theological thread that I would like to tug on for a moment. Because if there was ever a time to talk about unicorns, this is it. We live in an age where facts are fiercely debated, where wonder is often sacrificed on the altar of cynicism, and when hope feels increasingly out of reach. Climate collapse, political division, wars near and far, all threaten to grind our spirits down. And yet, what the unicorn offers is not a fantasy to escape to, but a vision to aspire toward. The power of mystery, the necessity of beauty, and the sacredness of imagination. Allow me to say something perhaps a bit heretical for a rational justice-seeking Unitarian Universalist pulpit, if there is actually a thing as being too heretical in a Unitarian Universalist church. I believe in unicorns. Not as literal creatures, although the jury is still out, but as metaphors that matter. I believe in the things that seem impossible but show up anyway. I believe in the glimmers of mystery that defy explanation but awaken something deep and real inside of us. I believe that things do not demand to be proven in order to be meaningful. In this way, I believe in the unicorn as a representation of the divine itself. Unicorns are, in many traditions, fiercely powerful and endlessly gentle. They are elusive, but pleasant to the pure of heart. They are magical, unnameable, liminal beings that live on the edge of the visible and the invisible. Isn't that, in some way, what we say about the holy? That which is too big for doctrine or dogma, too expansive to be caught in any creed, and yet as intimate as our breath. In this moment of history, when despair threatens to drown out wonder, I believe we need unicorns. We need symbols that remind us we are still capable of awe. We need sacred imagination to carve a path where reason alone cannot go. We need creatures of myth to whisper to us truths that hard facts can't carry. We need to believe, like the quote from Glee says, that, quote, a unicorn is someone who knows they are magical and isn't afraid to show it. That line may have come from a TV show, but it speaks deeply to what it means to embrace our own sacred worth. When I saw that episode where Kurt, a young gay teen, wrestles with how the world perceives him, it echoed my own story as a queer young adult. My own fear. My own need for courage. And I imagine it may echo some of yours too. Unicorns hold deep meaning, especially for many of us in the LGBTQIA+ community. Over the years, they've become a symbol of queer identity, pride, and resistance. Why? Because like the unicorn, queer people have often been told that they do not exist, should not. Because like the unicorn, they are radiant, unique, and sometimes misunderstood. Because like the unicorn, they embody beauty that defies rigid categories and celebrates fluidity, freedom, and fierce authenticity. For many queer folks, the unicorn is not just a symbol of personal magic, it is a declaration of existence. It is a refusal to be erased. It is a celebration of what makes us different, dazzling, and divine. In a world that too often punishes those who don't conform, the unicorn becomes a spiritual companion, a banner of joy, and a beacon of survival. And this matters for all of us, queer or not. In these days when LGBTQIA+ rights are under attack across our country and the world, when trans and non-binary people are targeted by legislation and violence, when books are banned and children are shamed for daring to be who they are, we must recognize that the unicorn isn't just a symbol of fantasy, it is a call to action, a call to love, a call to protect what is rare and sacred in each other. Embracing unicorns does not mean we are just embracing whimsy. We are embracing the holy work of affirming every person's right to live out loud, to be fully themselves, to shine without apology. We're saying you are not too much. You are not too strange. You are not too different. You are a miracle. You are a child of God, and you belong. And friends, that message is not just for queer folks. It is for all of us. Because we all have parts of ourselves we've been taught to hide. We all carry dreams and identities that feel fragile or strange. We longed to be seen and celebrated, not just tolerated, but truly welcomed. The unicorn reminds us that holiness does not always wear a robe or walk a well-lit path. Sometimes it shows up in glitter and rainbows and fierce fabulousness. Sometimes it gallops through our lives and dares us to follow joy, to follow justice, to follow love that refuses to fit in a box. So no, I don't expect you to leave here sharing my unicorn obsession, although if you leave here a little bit obsessed with unicorns, I'm not going to cry. But I do hope you will leave with permission to reclaim something you may have put away, whether that's wonder or delight or the wild belief that the world could be different, better, more beautiful than it is right now. Find your unicorn whatever and wherever that may be. Find what reminds you that the holy is still moving, still galloping through this world with a mane full of stardust and eyes full of fire. Find what lifts your spirit and refuses to be domesticated. May you be bold enough to believe in beauty. May you be brave enough to follow mystery. May you be gentle enough to love what is rare and strong enough to protect it. May we cause it to be so. Blessed be. Amen. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. Namaste. Thank you all so much.